Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about True Lies, Season 1, Episode 7. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So that opening, obviously we have this kind of weapons manufacturing company. They make weapons and stuff like that, gets hijacked. I mean, the whole entire building. Well, that room of the moment the guy was like, oh, this place can't be hacked. I'm like, all right, this guy's here trying to learn out like the vulnerabilities in your systems. I thought it was going to be a thing of like, yeah, I'm going to learn the insides of it, and then we leave, and then we're going to like take over the system or whatever. Wasn't expecting him to go full John Wick and literally kill everyone in the room. Like, yeah, one or two of his people taking everyone else out, but he pretty much killed everyone else in the room. I was like, that was nasty and brutal. But it turns out we have some very interesting developments. First and foremost, it turns out Axe Industries was made by Gibbs' dad, and Gibbs has beef with his dad, Al, who is played by Keith David. I saw his name in the credits. I was like, wait, he's playing Gibbs' dad? Which, it's just, if you don't know, it's funny because he recently played another dad role in Season 2 of, spoilers, but, you know, it's not that big of a spoiler, but in Season 2 of Leverage Redemption, he plays Elliot's dad, and Elliot and his dad kind of have a little bit of contention between their relationship, so it's just funny seeing Keith David kind of playing that in this regard with Gibb. It is interesting too because like no one on the team knew, well, first and foremost, that hey, your dad was like the founder of Axe Industries, plus your dad knows exactly what you do, because for them, no one in their lives, their family or friends, know what they do. Harry's in that unique position of, hey, my wife knows because she's a part of this, but they can't tell anyone else in their friends or family situation. So for him to have a family member that knows exactly what he does is kind of a special thing. I think there's also that element of, hey, we could talk about the fact is that we have people in our lives. You have your father, I have my wife, who know about this situation. They didn't really lean to that too much, but because it's also because, once again, Gibbs does not have the best relationship with his father, because it's a situation that he has a contentious relationship with his father because he feels like all his dad ever wanted for him was to be a junior Al. It's like, I can never be myself. I had to be what you wanted me to be. And that was a mini version of yourself. And he's always felt like he had to, it's like, yeah, my dad, like he never was satisfied with me joining Omega Sector, even though Omega Sector and Axe Industries have worked together in the past. They've actually supplied like a lot of like Omega Sector's weapons. It's like their relationship got even more soured the moment Gibb decided, hey, like I'm gonna go my own way. I'm gonna go Omega Sector rather than following my dad's shoes. It's a situation of they both love each other, but they were so stubborn and caught up in their own ways that they refused to listen to each other, which ends up being a major point of contention during the mission, because the FBI is doing the negotiation tactics, like buying time while Omega Sector sneaks in, which that's a complicated thing because we find out, like the moment Maria started getting a little antsy, I was like, does she have claustrophobia? And it seems like the only person who knows is Luther, because it was kind of like a moment of intimacy when that knowledge kind of got dropped, and she's like, oh, you're going to use that against me? He's like, no, I'm just trying to make sure you're okay, and he's trying to be supportive of her, and she's like, oh, don't, like, because she kind of felt like him like patting her, and she's like, oh, it made her kind of feel, I think for her it's just like, oh, I'm supposed to be this top class agent and I have this weird fear of tight spaces, which a lot of people are claustrophobic, but the fact is she feels, I think it makes her feel, for one, bad about it, but also the fact is that Luther's kind of bringing it up, you know, your ex, you know, someone that you divulge that information to in a moment of intimacy, now is kind of not using it against you, but being like, hey, he's just trying to be compassionate because he's like, hey, I know this situation is going to be a little uneasy for you, but she's like, no, I got this. I'm not going to be bothered by something stupid like a tight, small spaces or whatever, so I mean, communications is the biggest element of this episode because we have Gibb and Al not communicating properly. The same thing for Luther and Maria, as well as Helen and Harry, because she was trying to teach him salsa dancing, but he kind of wouldn't follow her lead. Like, she's like, okay, no, you are going to lead, but I'm going to teach you what to do first. And he has a hard time asking for help, which comes up to be a pretty important element to this episode when he gets sprayed in the face by a gas and it temporarily blinds him. So Which kind of in that same vein, they later on bring that up about, well, Maria brings up the fact is, well, like, you kind of gave me that pat on my shoulder. He was like, no, I do that for any colleague. She's like, oh, would you do that for Harry? He's like, well, no, because Harry's Harry. I think it's supposed to be an implication was like, Harry is too stubborn to accept help. So if Harry wasn't Harry, Gib I would do it for, Helen I would do it for, but not Harry because Harry's Harry. So... But despite the dire situation, like, despite Al bringing up good points of like, hey, there's a mysterious pipe that I know this building in and out, and there shouldn't be this like third mysterious pipe here. We should look into it. But it's understandable why Gib is like, no, we're here on a mission. We're here to save hostages. There's 130 people here that need to be saved. And even Helen finally says, it's like, right, you guys are both right, but you're so stubborn you won't listen to each other. And we kind of got a lot of, deeper into a lot of the issues that are brewing here. They used to have a good relationship back when he was a kid, but apparently around middle school is when things changed, because I'm assuming that's around the time... Well, probably that and a little bit younger is around the time his mom died, and that's when things really changed. They grasp onto each other around that time, but that's also, it's like, oh, building Legos and stuff together. But that's when things kind of fell apart. He's like, I was like, that's when he stopped calling me dad, just started calling me Al. He's like, yeah, because you stopped being so much of a dad because all you ever did was throw yourself into work, which I thought. My thought initially was, well, he most likely did that to kind of deal with your mom's death. But for him, it's like, no, I wanted to build something. I wanted to build this company that would be your safety net. I wanted to make sure I can make and create every weapon in the world that would keep you safe. It wasn't just meant to be like your legacy. Like, I wanted you to inherit this because I wanted you to have something that would always be able to keep you safe. And what did you do? You ran straight to a job that could have bullets flying at you, that you could be in so much danger. So that's why he had so much issue with Gibbs joining Omega Sector, because it's like, right, at least at X Industry, you have all these weapons at your disposal that will keep you safe. Plus, it's a job that doesn't involve you getting in the field where people will be shooting at you. So, because for Al, it's like, I've always been proud of you, but I can't believe there was even a moment that you really thought like, I wasn't trying to make you into a mini me. And that was always Gibbs' like point of contention towards his dad, and it's like this episode gave them a lot of clarity, eased a lot of tensions between them. So I thought that was beautiful in that regard. So on the Maria front, she ended up having to conquer her fear because she had to go inside the vent that Helen had to travel to get them out of the fire door when they were kind of running from a fire and explosion. But Maria went in there, and I love that Luther was like, okay, you have to use it, like, basically it was like, you have to, she has to stick the explosive device, and she's like, wait, are you really mansplaining this to me? And he's like, yeah, but what is that, it took your mind off your claustrophobia. She's like, no, I'm thinking about how you're mansplaining to me how to put up how to stick an explosive here, and also my claustrophobia. It says, oh, you suck. But it's like, hey, it all worked out in the end. So, I mean, he was trying his best to help, like, get her mind off of things, get her focused on something else. So that worked out, and Helen had to be the one to finally get Harry to, accept her help. It's like, right, we're in this together. I got my night vision goggles. Let's go in there. I'm going to lead the charge. I'm going to tell you what to do. And they made quite the team. Helen was his eyes, and he released some fists of fear, but let's not get it twisted. Helen took down like 2 by herself. Like, to me, I'm always a big fan of leg sweeps. I always think they're just like the dopest in fights and stuff like that. Especially when you go for like the full spin, or even like a half spin, like sweeping the feet type of thing is always super dope. I kind of was so sidetracked with like the character development stuff like that. I forgot what the overarching thing was. Right, these guys try to make it seem, the people that had taken over Axe Industries are trying to make it seem like, hey, we're doing this because all the weapons that this company has developed that have killed people, we're basically getting reparations for the families and the families of the victims of these weapons. But it's like, no, turns out Axe Industries ended up making nerve gas, and these guys found out about it, and they were here to steal it. For, I guess the guy's the CEO, the main guy that was in this episode that super got killed by the nerve agency. Like, everything was about biding enough time until they could get the nerve agent. And the plan was to basically kill everyone in the building and kill all the FBI agents on the outside. They already had, like, the whole missiles on the front. I guess this would have been their showcase of, like, look what we got. We're here to sell it to the biggest, highest bidder. So I would like, because they were obviously hired to steal it. The question that we never really found out who was behind that. Maybe that's something we'll get in the future. Maybe not. But at the very least, I mean, maybe they just stole it themselves because they found out about it. Now it's like okay, so now we'll sell it to the highest bidder. But they made it sound like, the guy in charge made it seem like maybe they already had someone. They were here because they were hired by someone. But maybe that was just my misunderstanding. So there's also the sweet moments between Al and Gib when they both kind of, it's like, oh, you called me Dad. He's like, yeah, guess I did. It's like, wait, did you call me Gib? He's like, yeah, I did. I thought that was really sweet. Once again, finally listening to each other. And like I said, they kind of, all these decades of just kind of like there being such animosity and issues between them. I think they still got some work, obviously a lot of time to make up for, but they're stepping in the right direction, even to the point Al's like, hey, I heard you got a girlfriend, and Al Gibbs like, oh, well, girlfriend, I don't know if, doesn't know if he'd go as far as saying like that's the case, but it's like, I was like, oh, I've never actually met any of your girlfriends before, but he's like, right, if you don't want me to do it, he's like, no, I'd love for you to meet Ava, and I was like, oh, that's super sweet. We also got introduced to another character, Quinn, this episode. I kept wondering why that actress looked so familiar. She was apparently in the Waiting movies, but I haven't seen those. Like, I remember the first Waiting a lot more. I remember the second one a little bit, but I definitely remember the first one a lot more, but I haven't seen those in so long. But she was also in another show. I had to Google it to make sure it's the same actress, but I believe it is. Vanessa, I'm going to butcher her last name. It's like in there, either Lingies or Linguys, I don't know. But she played the engineer Quinn. But she was on a show that was short-lived on Fox called Second Chance. The moment I saw her, I was like, why does she look so familiar? And I kind of figured that's what I knew her from. But either way, it's kind of interesting introduction that she was the one kind of doing the briefing because, well, Gibbs was arguing too much about, like, working with his father. So that's why he wasn't there, because he wanted nothing to do with this, because he didn't want to work alongside his father. And Quinn had to be the one to kind of break things down. She's the one that ended up breaking it to everyone, like, oh yeah, Gibbs' dad is the one who also, he knows about all of this, and also he started Axe Industries. And then there's also, the fact is that they made it seem like there's like a her and Luther thing. I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but it feels like they're potentially setting that up, which is kind of sad. I don't know where the whole him and Maria thing stands, because it definitely seems like Maria still has feelings for him. Once again, we don't know how much Luther heard before he passed out about the reason why she broke up with him, because she was too scared that, like being so close to someone and something happening to them, like what that would do to her. So, but we know Luther like passed out from like the drugs he was on, like when the ambulance was taking care of him, so we have no idea how much of that he heard. But Quinn's like, hey, I have this oh, you were really into those like laser those cutting laser pins. So like, yeah, I've got another one I could show you. He's like, oh, you can do that. She's like, oh yeah, like, you keep quiet about it. And he's like, oh yeah, let's do that. Because they were also talking about it earlier. It's like, how long have you been working here? She's like, oh yeah, like 7 years. They're like, oh, sorry. It's like, wow, you've been here 7 years, and this is our first time like really meeting you. So I wonder, is she going to kind of serve as, well, I guess Gib kind of falls in that lane. I was about to say, like, is he kind of going to be sort of like is it Q? Is that who it is? I know M, because I'm not well versed in James Bond. I know M is, well, the head honcho, but I'm like, isn't Q the one who does all like Bond's like gadgets and stuff? I wonder, is that what she's going to play? Like, I don't know if this is going to be a one-off role, or will this be a character that kind of pops in from time to time? Maybe not. Well, maybe if they're leaning into the potential of her and Luther being a thing, or maybe a budding relationship or something on that front. But especially if she's the engineer they got introduced to, that she's the one that ends up making a lot of their gadgets, so it would make sense. She doesn't handle the more like weapony stuff, but the more spycraft gadgets. So that's where I feel like they're definitely making her kind of like, I don't know if Q's typically awkward. I'm not well versed in the Daniel Craig James Bond's So I don't know. I don't really remember Q because I've seen very little of those. So I don't know if it's supposed to be very reflective of Q, or is she just being like a more awkward Q? If Q is in fact the person I think he is, the one who makes the weapons. Either way, so just a lot of interesting, fun developments in this episode. And by the end of it, I should also end off the note with like how, Harry finally hit the salsa situation, all it took was losing his sight, but it's like, yeah, he finally got it at the end. And once again, valuable lesson of, once again, like the teamwork thing. It's like last episode kind of touched on it. This episode did as well, where it's like, well, that was more so about leaning into the teamwork of it all, but this one is more so about accepting help when, people are there to help you. That, it's all about team camaraderie and working together. So, like I said, that was kind of a conversation all around for the entire episode. So, but really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.